You already watched the first video, GM, Toyota, Honda, Hyundai. 4 engines, 1 root cause, and you thought that was the whole story. It wasn't. While that video was still climbing the charts, 3 more automakers got hit with the exact same problem, and 2 of the original 4 never actually got fixed. One of these engines is under a class action filed by a woman whose brand new SUV threw a connecting rod through the block at 11,000 miles. Another one has been recalled twice in a single month for 2 completely unrelated defects, both capable of starting a fire. 20 years of turning wrenches, and I've never seen a year with this many engines still failing after the recall. Let's get into it. Number 7. Jeep 2.0-liter turbo 4-cylinder Jeeps. Turbo 4 powers the Wrangler and the Grand Cherokee, and late last year Stellantis recalled roughly 100,000 of them for manufacturing defects that can cause catastrophic engine failure or engine fires. That recall didn't close the book. Owners are still reporting cracked cylinder liners, blown head gaskets, damaged pistons, and turbocharger failures as routine complaints, not rare exceptions. Jeep has started rolling out a revised version of this engine for the 2026 Grand Cherokee. But until that redesign proves itself over real miles, the outgoing unit remains a powertrain worth avoiding. Here's the real reason. A 4-cylinder engine asked to do a 6 cylinders job, under a Jeep badge that buyers assumed meant durability by default. If you're the type who checks a build sheet before you sign anything, you're exactly who this channel is for. Hit subscribe because 6 more engines are still ahead. Number 6. Volkswagen 2.0-liter EA888 Turbo 4-cylinder. Volkswagen's EA888 is one of the most widely used engines the company builds, found in the Tiguan, the Jetta GLI, and shared with Audi's Q5 and Q3. It already went through 1 class action over premature turbocharger failures, wastegate corrosion specifically, and that case settled in late 2025. Case closed, or so it seemed. A new class action, Reese versus Volkswagen, filed in New Jersey federal court, alleges the piston rings in this engine don't hold enough tension, letting oil pass into the combustion chamber. That burned oil builds carbon, damages the PCV valve, and eventually causes gaskets and seals to fail. In January 2026, a federal judge denied most of Volkswagen's motion to dismiss the case, meaning it's moving forward. Here's the real reason. This is the same engine family's second unrelated lawsuit in 2 years, which means the EA888's problems aren't isolated, they're structural. Number 5. Nissan 1.5-liter VC-Turbo 3-cylinder. Nissan's variable compression engine was supposed to be the world's first production engine that could change its own compression ratio on the fly, marketed as innovation. It's turned into Nissan's biggest headache. In February 2026, Nissan filed 2 separate recalls on the same day for the Rogue, covering nearly 643,000 vehicles combined. One recall covers engine bearing seizure caused by oil that breaks down under high temperature. The other covers a throttle body gear that can fracture during startup. Both defects can cause a sudden loss of drive power. NHTSA's own filing states that a bearing failure can breach the engine block and discharge hot oil, raising the risk of fire. This stacks on top of a roughly 444,000 vehicle recall from 2025 for the same VC-Turbo engine. Here's the real reason. An engineering marvel on paper that couldn't survive contact with the way Americans actually drive. Number 4. Honda 1.5-liter turbo head gasket failure. This is not the same Honda story you already know. This is a second separate failure mode hitting the same 1.5-liter turbo family in the Accord, Civic, and CR-V from 2016 through 2022. Engine coolant seeps into grooves machined into the cylinder head, degrading the head gasket until coolant leaks directly into the cylinders. The result is misfires, overheating, and in enough documented cases, full engine failure. Owners report repair bills ranging from $6,000 to over $9,000, and Honda's extended warranty doesn't cover it. A California class action and a separate Canadian case in Quebec both allege Honda knew about the defect and kept selling the engine anyway. Here's the real reason. A head gasket engineered for a naturally aspirated engine, bolted onto a turbocharged one that runs hotter and under more pressure than the design was ever built to handle. 4 down. Every engine on this list so far shares one thing: a fix that came after the damage, not before it. The next three are worse because two of these automakers have already been through this exact failure once, and it's happening again on their watch. Number 3. General Motors 1.2-liter turbo 3-cylinder GM's smallest turbo engine powers the Chevrolet Trax, Trailblazer, Buick Envista, and Buick Encore GX, and it's now the subject of a class action filed in March 2026. The lead plaintiff, a California owner of a 2024 Trax, was driving when a reduced power warning appeared, followed by loud knocking, before the vehicle stalled with just 11,581 miles on the odometer. The cause? A broken connecting rod that destroyed the engine block, requiring a full replacement. The lawsuit says GM had already issued 4 separate technical service bulletins about this exact noise before her failure happened. Replacement engines are back-ordered, leaving some owners without a vehicle for weeks. In the worst cases, a broken rod that pierces the block can leak fluid onto hot components and start a fire. Here's the real reason: a 3-cylinder engine under high compression and turbo boost, built to hit fuel economy targets, with internals that can't survive the stress. GM's own bulletins already documented. Midpoint 7 engines, 5 different companies. Every single one traces back to the same decision: build smaller, stress the internals harder, and let the warranty department deal with what breaks. We've covered the ones still under investigation. What's left are the 2 engines that already cost their makers the most money, and they're still failing. Number 2. Toyota 3.4-liter twin-turbo V35A. You already know this engine from the last video. What you don't know is that it still isn't fixed. Toyota's V35A twin-turbo in the Tundra, Sequoia, and Lexus GX and LX has now gone through 2 separate recall waves for machining debris that lodges against the number 1 main bearing and causes the crankshaft to seize. Toyota redesigned the bearing for engines built from July 2024 onward. Every truck built before that date is still running the original part, and 2025 model year owners continue to report the identical failure, meaning the redesign hasn't fully solved the problem across the fleet. Here's the real reason. Toyota replaced a proven V8 with a new turbocharged platform that had 0 real-world track record, and the debris from its own manufacturing process is still finding its way into engines built after the fix. If you've made it this far, you already know more about these engines than the salesperson who's about to hand you the keys. Subscribe now because the worst one on this list is still ahead. Number 1. Kia 2.0-liter Theta/NU 4-cylinder Hyundai. And Kia spent over $1 billion in 2 separate class action settlements trying to put the Theta engine crisis behind them. The engine that started this mess in 2011 is still under a Kia hood in 2026. The Kia Seltos still uses this 2.0-liter Theta/NU engine in certain trims, even as the rest of the lineup has moved to the newer SmartStream architecture. The root cause hasn't changed either: metal debris left behind during crankshaft machining, which scores the connecting rod bearings until they fail. The result is the same it's always been: sudden engine seizure, stalling in traffic, and in the worst documented cases, fire. The settlement extended the powertrain warranty to 15 years or 150,000 miles, but only for owners who get the knock sensor detection system software update installed. Skip that update and the extended coverage doesn't apply. Here's the real reason the fix for the old engine exists. Kia just kept building the old engine anyway. 7 engines, 5 automakers. One pattern that refuses to end? A defect gets identified, a lawsuit gets filed, a recall gets issued, and the exact same failure shows up again a year later under a different hood. Jeep's 2.0-liter turbo, Volkswagen's EA888, Nissan's VC-Turbo, Honda's 1.5-liter turbo head gasket, GM's 1.2-liter 3-cylinder, Toyota's V35A twin-turbo, Kia's Theta/NU. Drive safe.